fiction, science fiction, horror, fantasy, crime, LGBT, thriller.
You have now entered the House of Mystery with your hosts, Eric Shapiro, David North Martino, John Copenhaver, and Al Warren. Heard on KCAA 106.5 FM Los Angeles,
102.3 FM Riverside,
and 105.0 AM Palm Springs.
Welcome back to the House of Mystery on KKNW 1150 AM Seattle. I'm Al Warren.
And this is Kev Thompson.
Well, Merry Christmas.
Well, I'm not quite sure after this show.
Yeah. Well, it's our annual Christmas show, and of course we can't have a great Christmas show unless we have our guest who's returning this year to tell us about all the good things we can expect from Christmas. So we've got Jeff Belanger. Thank you for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be back.
So,
welcome.
Yeah, thank you. This is a wonderful time of year, isn't it?
It is. Beautiful. It rains a lot. It's wonderful.
Yeah, well, I think it's got a lot of history and tradition to it. And a lot of people complain. People say humbug and things like that about how commercialized it's become or it's lost its religious meaning and so on. I don't know. I think we here on this show today can save Christmas. I know. Isn't it this big, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I certainly hope so. Because, well, my family is listeners, but I really hate the holidays because there's so much pressure. You know, who do you go visit? What do you buy? What do you do? Yeah. You know, you got Black Friday and Black Saturday and Cyber Monday. Oh, my God.
Well, we can save this. I'm telling you, we can save it here today. How much time do we have to save it?
Christmas is huge. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if we have enough time. We have.
No, we do. It doesn't take long. So I think what you have to realize is that the roots of Christmas go back thousands of years. It goes back to really Rome in a festival called Saturnalia. And Saturnalia would take place pretty much between December 17th and December 23rd each year, which is right around the winter solstice. And this was a raging party. It was they would sacrifice to the god Saturn, which is thus the name Saturnalia. It was days of partying, gift-giving, orgies, feasting, and the social structure was just thrown out the window. So, servants were the masters served the servants. All people were considered equal during this mega pagan party. And this is the very roots, the foundation of the celebration of Christmas today. And you have to realize that when you look at the way the Earth moves around the sun, we have 4 distinct seasons: winter, spring, summer, fall. Unless it rains all the time, and then you get like wet and not wet, right?
Yeah.
So you've got these seasons, and you've got the halfway in between, and those are the half holidays. These are where all of the major holidays all around the world from all the different religions typically fall pretty darn close to either the equinox, the solstice, or halfway in between all of them. And so December 20th, 21st is typically the winter solstice. And when you're talking about northern climes, this is to put it in perspective, you have to realize this is a time when everybody's been getting ready for 3 seasons for this one. We live in spring, summer, and fall, but we try to survive the winter. That's when you're in northern climates. That's the point. You're growing food and storing it and getting firewood and things like that because you have to survive the winter. And Saturnalia was like this big last party before the winter kind of sets in. So that's the earliest roots of it. But then you have to go up to the Nordic countries, and this is where we get the festival Yule, the Yuletide. Yule logs and all that stuff comes from the Scandinavian region, and this was also a party. They would all drink from the drinking horn. They would drink beer and pass it around, and the idea that we're all equal. We all drink from the same cup. Because you kind of know you're going to have to count on your neighbor. Because if something goes wrong, if your roof caves in because of the snow or whatever, then you're going to have to count on your neighbor to get through it. And they understood this, and I feel like that's really part of the spirit of the season. And we still, use a lot of these traditions and ideas that come from those Scandinavian pagans. And I'm sure that runs through your blood, right, guys? I mean, you still party like it's Scandinavia, right?
Well, I tell you what. Let's go back to this orgy thing.
Yes, of course.
No, I'm just joking.
No, you're not.
Well,
I don't
this
care
is
if
a
he's not.
this is a family-friendly show. But now, I understand, and I think most people understand that it comes Christmas, as we call it, comes from a pagan background. But how did we begin to meld it all into Santa Claus and Bethlehem? I mean,
sure. So, if you want to jump all the way ahead to the birth of Jesus and the Christmas story, no, we can. It's a part of it.
In order.
Okay. So, all right. Well, first, just a couple notes about the Nordic traditions, right? So, these guys would look around this harsh winter landscape, and imagine, you're up there in these northern climates where it snows. These are good, solid winters, and you look out, and everything is dead. All the trees, the leaves are gone. Everything is dead. Except there are certain trees that are so strong, so powerful, winter couldn't kill them. Evergreens, right?
Oh, yes.
Evergreens, holly bushes. So they would look around and say, wait a minute, these trees are magical somehow. There's something about these trees. They are so strong, so powerful, even winter can't kill it. And with all the leaves gone, they would be inside. And you've got to remember, the days are very short, the nights are very long, and they hear this wind whipping outside, and so on. And they believe it's the god Odin riding on his 8-legged horse, and Odin is depicted as this white bearded warrior on an 8-legged horse riding through the sky. And so what they would do is they would take down branches from these evergreens and they would hang them over their doors and over their windows, thinking that these powerful prickly needles would keep the evil spirits out of their houses and keep keep them safe inside. And this is a tradition that we carry on. They would burn Yule logs, and different trees would earn, different things. So, for example, ash would be for protection. Aspen would be for greater understanding of the world. Birch would be a new beginning. And the way they burn them is they would literally take the whole tree, drag it inside, and just feed it into the hearth. I mean, we're talking about a major fire hazard. All your firefighting professionals out there are going, oh, dear God, fire hazard beyond fire hazard, and you always started the Yule log with last year's remnants of the other Yule log. And so these traditions are carrying on in Rome, they're carrying on in the Nordic countries. And then let's just jump to the nativity and the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. We know very, very little about the actual birthday of Jesus. The only clue that we get to when Jesus was born is in the Bible, and it's Luke chapter 2, verse 8, if you want to read along. It said, shepherds were living in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. That's it.
Yes.
That's all we got. So in Bethlehem, there are 3 seasons of the year where the shepherds could stay out all night watching their flock. and the one season that they don't do that would be winter. So we can rule out winter as the birth of Jesus, but that's okay. I don't celebrate my birthday on my actual day each year. Sometimes it's on the weekend before or after. We all do that, right?
Yes.
All year
Yeah, that's okay. This doesn't undermine anything. I'm just saying that, it's perfectly okay. But what happened, how we got to get Christmas on December 25th was the Emperor Constantine. And in 313 AD, he was unifying Rome under one god. It was consolidation. And so he was, how do I sell this to these people? And again, remember I told you, Saturnalia, the party, the orgy, remember the orgy?
Yeah.
So
I do.
You do. So that was December 17th to the 23rd, and Constantine is like, man, I am not going to get rid of Saturnalia. This raging party's been going for centuries and centuries. Everybody loves it. I know what I'll do. I'll add 2 days to it. The 24th, Christmas Eve, the 25th, the birth of Jesus, Christmas Day. I'm now adding 2 days to your 6-day party. And that's something that the people could get on board with. So December 25th, 336 was the first Christmas celebrated on that day. And that's where it all began as far as, celebrating it on the 25th. And Santa Claus comes along really not long after. This is the guy who came from the land of Myra, which is modern-day Turkey. And he was born in 270 A.D. He died in December 6th, 343, and that's an important day to remember because in Europe, December 6th is St. Nicholas Day. And he, of course, was the patron saint of children. He was born a nobleman, gave all his wealth away, and December 6th became a very big day for really when Santa Claus comes in Europe. We just kind of changed that over time to the 25th in America and lots of other countries. And we're such a big cultural influence that, it kind of caught on. But so Santa Claus is December 6th, but if he's the 6th, that means the 5th is for another creature, and this is where things start to get dark. December 5th belongs to Krampus. Krampus is the Christmas devil. He's the enforcer. And this is when things get a little scarier. Do you guys celebrate Krampus at your house?
Oh, all the time.
Good. That's good. So let me ask you, when you were growing up, did you know any kids that actually got coal in their stockings or anything like that?
No.
I did.
Yeah. Well.
It's probably because of the orgies.
Right. But it's not really much of a consequence, is it? I mean, if you're bad all year, you have to just deal with coal in your stockings. That's not really that scary.
Well, it's almost a sympathetic gesture. Yeah, you were bad, but I'm going to give you something to keep warm during these harsh winter months.
Yeah, in certain parts of the world, that would be, and in certain, socioeconomic backgrounds, that could be the best gift you could possibly receive. Like, thank you, I can be warm for a day. So, you're right. And so, but the thing is, over time, we've really lost the consequence of this holiday, and Krampus represents the consequence. He is described as having horns and covered in fur and wrapped in chains.
Yes.
And a forked, devilish tongue, and cloven hooves for feet and human-like hands, and he carries a sack. And inside that sack, it's wiggling and moving because inside are all the naughty children. See, they don't have to worry about coal or stockings on Christmas Day. They have to worry about getting picked up, snatched in the night by Krampus, taken off to his lair, and eaten. So when Santa comes on December 6th, there's no bad kids left. They're all gone. They're dead. Santa's free to just give gifts because anyone alive on December 6th is a good kid, obviously, because Krampus took the bad ones.
Oh.
We've lost our way, gentlemen.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to remember
Lost.
that.
Yeah. So instead of the threat being like, oh, Santa's watching, you're not going to get as many presents, how about Krampus is watching? You'll be dead.
Damn.
I know. What happened? We got soft over the years.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Krampus came from Germany, and he got wildly popular in the latter half of the 1800s and even in the early 1900s. You can look online, and I actually own a few of these wonderful postcards that depict Krampus. He's absolutely a devil by any description, and he was super popular. There's hundreds and hundreds of these postcards. But the thing is, people think of him as like the anti-Santa Claus, but that's not really fair. He's a cohort. We are talking the original good cop, bad cop. These guys worked together. They worked in unison. Santa didn't do the dirty work. It was Krampus. So Krampus does the dirty work, and then there's even some postcards that show them arriving at a house together, Krampus and Santa. And St. Nick is there to reward the good kids, and Krampus is there to punish the bad ones. They work in unison. And so it's one of the things that I think we sort of lost over time. And I don't know if you saw the movie. It came out a few years ago. So it's called Krampus. It's a Christmas movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what did you think of it?
I was hoping it would be better.
Yeah, it was a sci-fi original, was it not?
No, it was in theaters. It was actually out.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, it was in theaters.
I saw it on Sci-Fi, and I was not impressed.
I understand. No, I get it. But I realized even when I watched it opening weekend in the theater, because I was just so excited about this. And I realized, as giddy as I was through the whole movie, that I am not a fair judge of this as this cinematic. My cinematic review doesn't count. But I will say this. They kind of nailed what Krampus is. And I don't want to give away the ending or anything like that if people want to see it. But I think they nailed the spirit of what this creature is, right? I mean, it's easy to say he's evil and out to destroy us, but if you think about the Grim Reaper character, the Grim Reaper isn't evil, right? He's just doing an awful job.
Simply
he's
doing
got
a job, yes.
Yeah, that you don't have to like the job. The job is to come and take you away to the next life and be done with your mortal coil here. And that's not pleasant, but it is a job to do, and it doesn't make him evil. And I kind of feel this. I feel like Krampus gets a bad rap. And I got to tell you guys, where I live here in Massachusetts, there was a Krampus festival planned for December 2nd, and it's the fifth one. It was the New England Krampus Society puts this thing on, and every year it gets bigger and bigger. This year it got shut down by a church.
What?
And I kid you not. I wish I was. And I think that's so sad, because I wish I could talk to the church and be like, I think you're missing the point. This is a character that really could put butts in seats if you incorporated it right. I mean, do you want to get rid of the devil in church? Right? I mean, you kind of sort of need the devil, don't you? I mean, if you were in charge of a church?
Yes, I mean, that's the whole point, is we don't want to go there, so we'll go over here. But
I agree with you.
How can you appreciate anything good if there's nothing to compare it with?
I completely agree with you. A world that's purely evil, you have no point of reference. You wouldn't think of it as evil. You think of it as normal. A world that's purely good, same problem, right? You have no choice, no free will, no comparison. It just becomes a baseline. And so I think it's so tragic, and it's something that I even the church got some emails and letters, and there's been op-eds written and so on, but they basically shut this thing down because they viewed it as just this pagan celebration and devil worship, which it just is not.
No.
Nothing.
You're not worshiping the devil at all.
No, you're
in fact, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
no,
interrupt.
do it. Jump in.
In fact, you're kind of making the church's point for them. If you don't behave, and I'm trying to, speak kid here. If you don't behave, this is the consequence. Is that not what the church is saying? If you don't live this type of life, these are the consequences. You're going to go to a bad place with a bad person. It's almost a parallel. Why would they be so opposed to that?
Because I think it's a quick snap judgment of what it is. And they look at it as like, geez, right down the street from us. Because this festival was taking place at a venue that was rented and so on, but it was like diagonally across the street from the church, and they viewed this as this pagan devil worship. But it just isn't, and that's one of the things that's so tragic.
And yet, allow me to interject it once more.
Please.
However, the church is willing to integrate a lot of pagan beliefs and pagan traditions into their liturgy. For example, let's jump to Easter. What do eggs have and rabbits have anything to do with, the rebirth of or the resurrection of their Christ?
No, it's the goddess Esther and of course fertility rites and so on. We're teaching our children fertility in a very safe, cartoonish way, which is okay. I'm not saying that's wrong. I think it's a very good thing. You don't want to get graphic with young children. You want to just use symbolism, flowers and birth and eggs and bunnies and so on. Oh. And it makes sense to me. But you're right. They are very pagan in their origin, as most of these things are. And that doesn't make it wrong. I can't stress that enough. We're not knocking down churches or religious institutions at all. When someone says, you get on your knees to pray, then it makes sense. Well, pray to this God, not that God, or worship this or not that. There's a long tradition of it. If you view a place as sacred, that's okay. Make it sacred in this belief system, or let me show you how this deity had something to do with it. And it's an incorporation. Everything is what happens over time with folklore and legend and belief and so on. It gets stirred in a pot, and you look at it and you say, well, of course this is my symbol. The cross is my symbol. It's not the Egyptian Ankh, which is a cross with a loop at the top. It's not this or that. It's mine, because you don't even know the backstory anymore. It doesn't make it wrong. It doesn't undermine anything. It just means that you've built off of thousands of years of traditions and incorporated them into something that works for you. And that's okay. It's perfectly okay. But I think to ignore the backstory means to not understand how you got here and not get the whole picture. And so a character like Krampus, and Krampus isn't alone, by the way. There's many other figures out there, and even Santa Claus. Just to jump back to him real quick. So you've got this guy Nicholas who dies in 336, and then eventually he is sainted by the church, and his legend of generosity grew to the point where the figure became something bigger than the man, and then he moved from December 6th to December 25th. Suddenly he's got a team of 8 reindeer that fly through the sky, and it grows and it grows and it grows, and it's become who he is today. He's half secular, half religious, and so on, and that's all okay. He belongs to all of us. We redefine him year after year with our own children, our own families, with the movies that come out, with the way we talk about him. He's redefined year after year. And I think what's interesting is, I've said before, when you talk about a legend is a living, breathing thing. It can't be disputed. It is as real as your desk, your feet, your car, your house, whatever. For example, if I say Bigfoot, I don't have to say anything else. You have a picture in your mind. Now, will we go find a dead one in the woods? I don't know. Will we find a live one? I don't know. But I do know that when I say the word Bigfoot, you have a picture. When I say Santa Claus,
I see a big truck.
You see a big truck, yeah, right, with the wheels that it crushes the small cars, right?
I'm just playing.
No, you're from Alabama. You said that, I know. Guys love that down there.
Yeah.
So, no, but you know what I'm saying? And so when I say Santa Claus, right now, you've got a picture in your mind, and it's probably really close to the picture in my mind, the red suit and the beard and all that other stuff, which we really, if there's anyone we can thank for that, it's not Jesus or the church, it's Coca-Cola.
You're right.
They gave us that image, in the 19 teens and so on, and we've run with it ever since. And again, it's okay. In 1931, that was the first Coke ad that featured Santa, and really defined the image that we still think of today: the fur-lined suit, the red suit, the hat, everything.
Yeah,
but still, that hat.
He was a real character, Saint Nick.
Absolutely, he's a real person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Saint Nick, and not only that, and worth celebrating, by the way. This guy was born wealthy, orphaned, and spent his whole life giving it away to help others. That's all he wanted to do, is help other people. And that's just not a bad example. Just a guy that he was happiest when he was helping people, especially children, poor people, throwing money through their open windows at night if they needed money for food or clothing or whatever. And, man, if you can't get behind that, then check yourself. You might not be human. This is a good thing.
Was he like Michael Jackson?
No. Do you have other questions?
Well, is that not where the stockings came from?
Yeah, they would leave their first you would leave your shoes outside, and he would slide the gifts, the candy, the money into the shoes outside of your door. And then eventually it moved inside. People would hang their stockings to dry them. You'd wash them and dry them by the fire. So hanging them was kind of like hearkening back to that tradition. And then Santa eventually would come into your house through the chimney, whatever. I mean, now we're talking Santa, not Nicholas from Myra, but the actual Santa Claus. So the story just evolves, but it builds on centuries and centuries of traditions, and all of that is really kind of wonderful, And when I think about that, when I go ahead and hang my wreaths now, I think about, hey, I do want to keep bad spirits out, because we all get cranky and grumpy around this time of year. We can't help it. It's a lot of pressure. Like you said, what family to visit and who's going to bake what, and do I have enough money to pay for presents for family and kids and all this other stuff and all of these things. But, man, if I can keep those bad spirits outside with hanging a wreath and putting up some lights, that's great. That makes my life happier, even if it's only for a few weeks in December. This is a good thing. But it comes from a long tradition.
And there is actually a paranormal parallel to this. Because that is why, and I'm talking about the spiky wreath. That is why they used to surround cemeteries with pointed fence, because they figured that the bad spirits would get caught on those points.
Sure. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. No, and there's so many other little traditions. For example, have you ever been stuck under the mistletoe?
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
He hangs there.
All the time. I'm
you just wait and wait.
Yeah.
Waiting.
Yeah.
I post myself there.
Right. So the mistletoe is a great story. It's the goddess Frigg, who was she's a Norse goddess. She's the mother of Baldar, who's the god of summer. And Baldar dreams of his own death, And so the goddess Frigg makes a deal with, she felt this was an omen, that her son was going to die. So she makes this deal with water, earth, and sky, that nothing in their domains would do any harm to Baldar. And so that was okay, but she overlooked one thing. There is something that doesn't grow in water, earth, or sky, and that thing is mistletoe. Because what mistletoe is it's actually like a parasite that grows on a tree. So it dodges all the bullets. It doesn't come from the ground. It grows from a tree itself. So the god, Loki god, he's the god of evil. He made an arrow that was tipped with mistletoe, and he gave it to the blind god of winter and told him to aim it at Baldar, who he didn't know he was aiming at it. And when it struck Baldar, he died. And so for 3 days, all the creatures of the earth and water and sky tried to revive Baldar, but it was only his mother's tears that dripped into him that brought him back to life. And her tears turned into these pearly white balls on the mistletoe branch. And it was decreed that no harm should ever come to anyone who stands under the mistletoe. And the only thing you're allowed to do under that is a token kiss as a symbol of love when you're under it. That's the tradition. It goes back to this Norse mythology, and it's really kind of a cool story when you think about it. It's really not so much about stealing a kiss as it is just maintaining the peace, which if you're a married person with a family, maintaining the peace in December is more difficult than any other month. Right?
Yeah.
You are right.
Yeah. A lot of work.
How much did you spend on that? Oh, God, who's staying with us? How long?
Yeah.
And here's why it's a myth, because I stand under it all the time and nobody will ever kiss me.
Yeah, that's sad, isn't it?
No.
Maybe they don't have the story.
I'm looking out the window right now, and actually I've got mistletoe growing in my trees right now.
So the good news is once they
maybe this year.
Yeah, when they hear the story, I bet there's a kiss coming the second this show ends. They're going to hear it and they go, "Oh, come on, come here,
Yeah, they'll
pucker
come
up."
running.
So let's say Krampus is a little much for you. You love your children and you're all for like the discipline of it, but you're thinking, you know what? I don't want them to think they might actually die. Because in the old days, you could do like, hey, if you wake up on December 6th, good news, you made it, right? If you wake up alive. Imagine going to bed. They say like, oh, I can't sleep the night before Christmas. Of course not. You think you're going to die, right? You're like. There's no sugar pump fairies going through your head. It's daggers and teeth and horns. But there's another character who is like Krampus light, and he also comes from Germanic folklore, and he's called the Belsnickel, which translates to Nicholas in furs. And the Belsnickel is not going to murder or eat your child. The Belsnickel is just going to beat him mercilessly. So this is kind of an alternative.
I guess.
So the Belsnickel shows up around the 1830s. And the thing about the Belsnickel is every community had one, and each year you would take turns deciding who it would be. So one year it could be me, it could be you next year, and so on. And the Belsnickel shows up to homes 2 weeks or so before Christmas, and he might throw candy on the floor. And if kids jump for it before it's offered to them, the Belsnickel will pull out switches of sticks, and hit the kids. And the Belsnickel will ask the parents, are there any naughty children here? And they might point and say, oh, yeah, Al here's been naughty. And so the Belsnickel takes Al to the backyard, ties him to a tree, and beats him with a stick. But he won't kill you, Al, because he's saying, all right, now it's time to behave and be a good boy, and if you keep behaving, then Santa will come and bring you a present. So he's there to just get you back on the right path. So the thing is, this tradition did come over to the United States, and it's still kind of popular, especially in like Pennsylvania Dutch country. Still celebrated that way. But I'm starting to see him in other places. There's I do some projects for PBS, and there is a historic home in Connecticut, Niantic, Connecticut, called the Smith Harris House. And they decided years ago, we're not going to do St. Nicholas, we're going to do a Belsnickel event. And each year they bring in the Belsnickel now, and it's become more and more popular every year. And let me answer the question you're about to ask before you ask it. No, sadly, he can't beat the children that are brought there.
Oh,
Oh, damn it.
I know. It's like, what's the point? But he does carry a stick, and he does bring candy, and he does tell stories, which is really great. And but I think it's pretty neat that these characters, these legends, are kind of coming back, and I think they're coming back because we need them. We are summoning Krampus, we're summoning the Belsnickel, just as we do any legend that we need.
Yeah.
That's real, you know? I mean, a legend only dies when we stop talking about it. And they can go dormant, they can go to sleep, and we can wake them up again. And I think that's what's been happening these last few years. And proof of it is, even if you didn't like the Hollywood movie, you know, Krampus, the fact that it got to be a Hollywood movie and got widescreen release and gets played on television tells you that we are talking and thinking about this character more than we have been for the last, 80, 90 years.
And I was just thinking about you when I was at the department store the other day, because on the end of a shelf there was the elf on a shelf.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. So the elf on the shelf, I would say, is really, in Sweden, there's a character called the Tomten, and he's a house spirit, and he's kind of mischievous, but he's also really necessary. You have to realize that the Tomten would be there, and he would kind of keep you in line. So not just and all year round, by the way, not just at Christmas time. The Tomten would, if you were neglecting your animals, the Tomten might come in and beat you. But also would help you with house chores and things like that. And the Tomten is like all beard, like it's your typical little like gnome-like creature. Long white beard, very short in stature. Maybe come up to your knee at tops. You hardly ever see him. And all he asks for his services all year round is that on Christmas Eve you leave out a bowl of sticky, sweet rice pudding. That's all he asks. You do that, and he will stick around for another year and keep helping. And the worst thing the Tomten can do to you is leave. Is say, I've had enough. Forget it. No pudding. You're being cruel or not kind to each other. I'm out. You get no help. That's the worst thing that can happen. This is really the original elf on a shelf. This thing that's always there, always watching, moving around, helping you, keeping you in line, and so on, and only wants a reward once a year. And so you just make this pudding, and you put it out. In the Swedish tradition, this pudding is really popular. You might put raisins in it or whatever, but it's just a sweet rice pudding that is often served around the holiday season. And leaving a food offering out is a tradition that goes back through many, many cultures. The Gaelic culture, leaving food out for the dead, and so on. This goes on and on. And now we still do it, right? I mean, I don't know about at your house, but on Christmas Eve we put cookies out for Santa.
That's exactly what I started to say. You're leaving cookies and milk out for Santa Claus.
Yeah, of course. So we still do it. We still leave this reward out for the spirit of that thing that keeps us in line all year. Except now he's got help, and so the elf on the shelf is very much pulled from that Tomten tradition. But I had an idea that I would love to see. And, as soon as I get some seed money, I'm ready to hire a manufacturing company to make me like a 6-foot inflatable Krampus in the corner.
That's perfect.
You guys want in on the ground floor or what?
Yes. I'm willing to do it.
Yeah.
So each morning, the Krampus is in a different corner, just watching. Oh, God. I'd keep that thing out all year.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it at the foot of my daughter's bed and then wake her up.
Yeah. Oh, look, Krampus is here, honey. Merry Christmas. I love it. That's a good idea.
Yeah. Wow. So now, what about Christmas songs and things?
Yeah. So one of my favorite ones is, God, what was it? It was 1963. Andy Williams. There's that line in the song. It says, "There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago." And one of the traditions for the longest time, that song came out in 1963, right? This is not ancient history. So even back then, it was very normal that you would tell ghost stories, especially Christmas Eve. That's a long tradition that we got away from. Really, only in the last 30, 40 years did that start to go away. Women's magazines used to publish them. Here's a scary ghost story for your fireplace this Christmas. So it's a shame that we got away from that, because it is, you're talking about really long nights. It is a scary time of year. Think about some of the great horror stories ever. Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven. I remember that bleak December. It takes place in December. The idea you've got this cold winter night settling in, and we've gotten away from that tradition, and I don't know why. That one, and the good thing is, anyone listening out there, you can bring it back. You can bring it back in your own home. You can go ahead and start telling these stories again. And I think it's a shame because we get in touch with something pretty primal when we get broken down and when it's quiet. And that primal part of us connects us to our ancestors, to our own family traditions, to our own heritage, and so on. And ghost stories do that. Ghost stories literally bring the past to the present. That's why they're so powerful. That's why we love them so much, because they serve us in doing that. And they haunt us, and we think about them, and they keep gnawing at us, and that's what makes ghosts so great, one of many, many things. And so that's a tradition that I would love to see us bring back. I mean, we hear that song every year in the damn grocery store, and the line goes right by us, Well, scary ghost stories, I guess, I don't know. But why not bring it back?
Oh, there you go. Now, Christmas lights, that's one thing. Where did they come from?
Christmas lights come from China. I don't know where you buy yours, but if you read the back of the box, they all say the same thing, made in China. We're moving into Victorian times now, and in Victorian times, that's when Christmas trees, the evergreen, starts to become symbolic. Really, and again, nothing new, but now we're bringing it indoors, and to light it, you have to realize again, these are really short days, really long, dark nights. So candlelight becomes representative of kind of like getting through the night. And so candles started to be placed on these trees, which again, fire hazard, totally. And many a home was lost to this tradition, but it was also an important part of it, to light the tree. And depending on your religious bend, you could either take it as pagan, or you could take it as, the light of Jesus lighting the night, and he is the eternal light, and so on. The star at the top of the tree, representing the star that showed over Bethlehem, or the angel on top of the tree. That's okay. All good. This is what we do. We take this pagan evergreen and we Christianize it, and that's totally okay to do if that's your belief system. Totally fine. All good. And so we've all of our religious practices, traditions, and so on, you really have to think of it as like a gumbo or a stew. And year after year we add new ingredients. There's stuff in there that goes way, way back. But every time we add something new, you get a new flavor, you get a new thing, and that's really what this holiday is. Every year we change the recipe just a little bit, and that's kind of interesting. It must reflect the times. It must serve what we need it to serve, and so that's what we do to it each year. And so when people get all hung up on like, oh, you got to keep the Christ in Christmas, well, religiously speaking, Christ was the birth story is really not an important part of Christianity. It just isn't. The resurrection, that's the kicker. Everyone's born. How many people die and come back? Christians will tell you only one. So the resurrection, Easter is if you're really a Christian to the letter, that's the big holiday. It's just not Christmas. And in fact, way back when, only noble people concerned themselves with their birthdays. The commoners didn't care. You forgot all about it. It was not an important day. It was noble people, and only when that got to be more of a big deal did they say like, well, Jesus needs a day. This is an important figure. We need a day, and that was another reason to put a stake in the ground and say, okay, December 25th. That will be the day, and it grew into legendary status. Even though one thing most biblical scholars agree on is that his birthday was not December 25th, even if you can't pinpoint it. So,
well, it would have been around March or April, from what I'm being told.
Yeah, that's what I've heard as well, and it would be springtime. But again, like I said, I celebrate my birthday sometimes 2 weeks later if I'm traveling or working or whatever. It's all good.
Yeah, every 2 years for me.
Leap years, every leap year.
Yeah, tough break. Yeah, tough break. But the good news is you're 75% less old than us.
Yeah.
Now, Jeff, I would be remiss if I didn't ask, for the sake of the listeners, the similarities between Santa Claus and the stories of Nimrod. You know,
Yeah.
you've got the virgin birth. You know, you've got the white and red. You've got him, you know, riding around the Christmas tree. Are there really that many similarities?
Yeah, well, so every tradition, right, borrows from others. And the virgin birth is in the Epic of Gilgamesh. And, this, again, we're going back to a time where women were really seen as property, and their virginity was absolutely all important. And so a virgin birth would be something that's just like, that's just the biggest deal possible. And that happens in the Epic of Gilgamesh, which predates the Bible and so on. So, but yet there's a great flood in the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's a great flood in the Bible. There's a virgin birth in the Epic of Gilgamesh. There's a virgin birth and so on. And so this is the kind of thing that as we move forward, we can't help but borrow from those who came before us, to the point where a story gets told and retold so many times that we don't even know the origins of it anymore. If you'd allow me a quick digression here, I'm currently working. Yeah, so I'm working on a project. I wrote a book called Who's Haunting the White House, and I'm turning that book into an audiobook, which has been so much fun to work on. And I want you guys to picture Abraham Lincoln right now in your mind. You know what he looks like. Pull out a $5 bill if you need to. So you got Lincoln, and I want you to hear the first line or so of the Gettysburg Address. You got it?
Well, it's Christmas. I don't have a $5 bill.
I know, right? Yeah, you spent it. You gave it to the guy with the jingling bell outside of the store. Yeah. So the thing about it is you've probably got a voice in your head that sounds something like 7 years ago, right? Am I close?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't know what Lincoln's voice sounded like because he died before audio recording was ever invented. Yet somewhere along the way, some actor said this is what he should sound like, even though if you read newspaper descriptions of the day, Lincoln's voice was shrill and high-pitched and didn't seem to fit his tall body. Yet every actor steals every other actor's idea of what his voice sounds like, to the point where we have an expectation. We all know what Lincoln's voice sounds like. It sounds like him in the Hall of Presidents at Disney, and Gregory Peck in the 1980 miniseries, and the guy that was in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Every actor has stolen every other actor's idea of it, to the point where it's become this homogenized expectation of a thing. And that's what happens with stories and folklore and religions and so on. A story can get told and retold so many times that we go, yeah, no, this is mine. This is my story. This belongs to my culture. To the point where Lincoln's voice, you now know what it sounds like, even though every actor just ripped off someone who came before him, someone just decided along the way, this is what it would have sounded like. This sounds noble and whatever. That happens. You tell a story enough and it becomes your truth.
Well, there you have it.
I know, sorry.
Touche.
Yeah. Sorry for the Lincoln digression, but I've been working on it lately, and it's been really interesting. But think about it. One more second on that. So, think about it. We're working on this audio project, and I'm like, I need a Lincoln voice actor. And this guy I work with, who's great, he's a great voice actor, he says, well, really, I think I could, just reading these newspaper accounts, it would be kind of like 7 years ago, and I'm like, oh, but you can't do that because no one would believe it. They'd be like, that's not Lincoln, even though that might be way closer to the mark. We couldn't get away with it. We had to duplicate what everyone else did. Isn't that weird?
Now, another little factoid about Lincoln, since we're on this topic, and I'm digressing here. Yeah, you brought it up, not me.
I know, my fault.
The reason that he grew a beard
is
because he was talking about running for president, and wasn't it a young girl that's saw that he had acne, and she's like, well, you need to cover that up, and so he grew a beard to cover his acne.
That's right. Yeah, no, it was a letter from a little girl who said you'd look better with whiskers, and he did, and he tried it and kept it, and it became part of his iconic look. Sometimes that's all it takes.
So there you go, listeners. That's free. That's free from us.
We're charging for the rest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They pay for the other.
Fair enough.
The Christmas zombie horse.
Are you talking about the Grilla?
Marilude.
No, I don't know that one.
Oh, okay.
Drop it on me. What is it?
It was just said it's a skeleton mare of Welsh tradition rises from the dead and wanders the streets. What else does she do? Oh, reminds the living of their existence. Has only
cool.
one goal in mind: to get into your house, to keep the zombie horse out.
Wait, the zombie horse wants to keep the zombie horse out?
Yeah, that's why I'm talking to the professional. I thought I'd
Wow.
find out. Yeah.
I don't know that. So, okay, in Bulgaria, there's a creature called the Karakonkalis, and it's a shapeshifter, and he appears during the Christmas holidays. He's said to lurk in the shadows, and he awaits the arrival of a passerby. And the thing is, this creature, if you spot him, he might ask you a riddle. And if the word black is not incorporated into the answer, the person basically receives a death blow from this monster. And the thing is, he's a shapeshifter, which means he can look like anything, including Aunt Agnes. So you have to be careful about who you allow into your home, because once he gets inside, you're in real trouble. So that's interesting that it sounds sort of similar to this other tradition that comes from Bulgaria.
Yeah, it must be. I'm just looking at it. It's right beside my babushka.
Awesome.
Well, hey. And I see your Tompton and Belsnickel and Perry Fotard.
Is Black Peter?
Yeah, Black Peter.
Yes. So Black Peter is that one is going away because our society wants him to.
Yeah.
And the thing about Black Peter is it's pretty racist. It comes from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
And so what happened is around 1850, Black Peter shows up, and he's basically a Moor child that was rescued by Santa, who then pretty much became Santa's servant / slave, really. So it's not a nice story, and often Black Peter in modern times is portrayed by a Caucasian person dressed in blackface, which is just pretty horribly racist, even in other parts, even in the Netherlands. And so in recent years, there's been serious protests over this. So they have these parades that they run every year, and Black Peter comes in, and there's been more and more protests to the point where we're really kind of doing away with it. Society's saying, like, this harkens to a very racist tradition in our past, not just in America but in other countries as well. And I think it's time to let this one go. And when you think about Santa owning slaves, that sounds ridiculous. It sounds the antithesis to what Santa is supposed to be. But then you start thinking about the elves. And you go, wait a minute.
Yes. I mean, what's the difference?
Right. My daughter loves the show Glee, and we were watching some older episodes, and one of the girls leans into one of Santa's elves and says, like, you're free, you can run away. It's just one of those comments where you're just like, yeah, that's right. Where can the elves go if they don't want to keep making toys for free, for just room and board?
That's why you put them at the North Pole. Where the heck you going to go?
Yeah, right, exactly. It's like being on an island. This is it. You got me or nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there you go. You couldn't ask for more.
Yeah, for sure. It's all these traditions we make them what we make them, and they change and they evolve. And like Black Peter is a good example of one. It's time to go. This is our society's. Should move on from that, and we should maybe be a little bit ashamed of it and just do away with it, because that's not where we want to be right now. And you're allowed to do that. I think sometimes you're allowed to let a tradition go. You don't keep doing it just because you've done it. You do it because it has meaning and importance right now, or you change it. And that's one of the things that I think people get hung up on. Like, well, we've always done a thing this way, therefore it should never change. And, well, slavery was around for a long time, and that should change. And equal rights was not a thing for a long time. It's okay to change and evolve. It's important, and you're allowed to change and evolve the story and the legend to suit you as you need it.
Well, Jeff, before we let you go, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
Because you have got to solve something for me that I have been struggling with for years.
I'll try.
Oh, here we go. Put your hat on.
All right.
Is the amount that you spend on a person representative of the love you have for them, or is it really the thought that counts?
Oh, no, it's a dollar amount. We live in America, so.
Oh, doggone you.
I tell all my family and friends, listen, it doesn't have to be practical. As long as it's expensive and really puts you out. That's all I care about. Put it with the others. I mean, never play with it.
Doggone you. We're gonna have to edit that out.
No.
You should edit that out. Because honestly, like, I tell my daughter's 10, and when she draws me a picture or makes me something, like, that's when I get all warm and fuzzy. When she, when you get, like, another mug, number one dad, you're like, oh, that's nice, but something homemade is always better.
I'm just playing.
Humbug.
I know. Listen, no, I gotta say, like, you guys know from my own background, I'm really a Halloween guy. I love ghosts and legends and haunted places, and I'm so crazy busy in the fall doing programs and lectures and events and interviews. And then this time of year comes, and I love it for so many reasons, because it's got its own legends and its own lore and its own ghosts, but also because I get to slow down a little bit, and I realize after researching all this stuff for a few years now, I've really come to embrace every little piece of it. I know what the tree represents, and I know what it represents to me. And I know what hanging that wreath on the door means to me. When I put it up, I really want to keep the bad spirits out. I do. Because they're easy to sneak in during this time of year when we get stressed out. And I love the lights, and I love to light up this long, dark night. And I love the idea that, we're getting ready to hunker down and survive the winter and look out for each other, our neighbors, our family, our friends, and so on, because it's a tough time, when you have to get through that until we all come out of hibernation and greet the sun again. And I think that's all just awesome. And instead of just doing it because this is how you've done it every year, and this is where you put the wreath, and this is where you put the lights up, give that some thought. And give some thought about the millennia of traditions that are coming together from ancient Roman times through the Middle Ages, through the Dark Ages, all the way up to, decades and centuries ago, and you were allowed to bring any piece of it that suits you into it. And that's really cool. That's the spirit of this thing. That's the ultimate gift. And so I really, truly do embrace this holiday.
Well, it's on that note that we'll say goodbye, and we're going to wish all of our listeners a great Christmas and New Year's, and we'll see you back in the new year. And our guest has been the Christmas specialist, Jeff Belanger. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
To find out more about our show, guests, or listen to a previous show, visit our website at www.somethingweirdmedia.com.
The mission has been completed.
The end! By George, he's got it! It is the end!
I'll see you.
If you're lying to me, I'll be back.
This has been a production of Something Weird Media.